This is Remote Daily, your daily dose of inspiration. This is Remote Daily, an oasis of innovation for your mind, soul, and heart. Connect, act, and recharge with Remote Daily. This is Remote. This is Remote Daily.
Kudos to our house band, Eleanor Dubinsky and Dario Acosta. Teich, thank you so much. Usually they play large stages in New York City. Now they're here with us to welcome on Remote Daily, a serial entrepreneur and investor, shark on ABC's Shark Tank, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, and an internet legend. A large round of virtual applause for our guest, Mark Cuban. Hi, Mark. How are you doing? I guess you got to unmute yourself first.
Myself. There we go. How's that?
Great. How are you doing,
Good.
Mark?
I'm great, Felix. Thanks for having me on. I love it. A house band and carpenters, and this is, a little yoga breathing. So I got like a double dose of my yoga today. So it's awesome.
Thank you. Mark, our topic today is leadership in this moment we're going through in this crisis. So I want to start where you are at home. Your son Jake is 10, your daughters Alyssa and are 13 and 16, if I'm right.
Yep.
I learned that you played piano during lockdown, getting on their nerves. I also saw you show up on your daughter's TikTok dance videos. So
Yep.
Please take us into the Cuban household for a moment. Behind those doors in your background, how do your leadership skills fly with 3 kids under lockdown?
Totally different. Yeah, totally different. My 10-year-old, it's been fun because we'll go and shoot baskets, or I just got this. Have you seen those big bubble soccer balls? And so I decided I need to find something that would enforce social distancing in case they wanted friends to come over and let out a little bit of the aggression that they're all feeling right now, 6 weeks in. So we blew up these big bubble balls. So now we're all going out in the backyard just banging into each other to release a little bit of aggression. But I mean, you know what? In the Cuban household, my word doesn't carry a whole lot of weight with my teenagers. And so they pretty much run the show. They're the leaders, I'm the followers. But that's the way it should be. It's very difficult for them, and we're not trying to force anything on them. Fortunately, they're still having to do a bunch of schoolwork, and we're all just hanging on and just trying to enjoy each other's company while because there's no better alternative.
Do you still control their phones and their Netflix accounts? That's still a thing?
No, that kind of went by the wayside. We used to do a thing where you had to read in order to get screen time. And, with all this, and actually, to be honest, once my 16-year-old hit 15, she kind of took control, and it's like her world, and we just try to step into it every now and then. But the 10 and 13-year-old, I think, have been really good with screen time, but we don't have the control of it that we used to.
Let's zoom out of your house and into the American Airlines arena. Look at your leadership with the Dallas Mavericks. You were in the middle of a game when the NBA shut down on March 11th. You now proposed opening up the NBA for television, basically hosting ghost games with zero audience. But how do you survive this crisis as a club? How do you lead your employees, your athletes, your fans at this point?
It's a great question. First, safety. You can't, we can't cut any corners. We can't put anything but our employees first, whether they're players or ushers. We have to make sure that they're confident that when they step on the court, they're going to be safe, that when an usher is dealing with a fan, they obviously don't know, when we get to having fans. And in the interim, just building confidence. And, I think people forget it's not just about being in the arena and putting on a game. Even employees that may not seem to be the biggest names, people that do all the background work that still need to get the arena open. We have to deal with issues like, how do they get to the arena? You know, are they taking public transportation? Do they have their own cars? How are they getting home? What are we going to do about feeding them? So there's a whole litany of things that we're going through now to make sure that we can build that confidence. Because as a leader, the number one thing that I have to make sure that we're aligned on is that everybody feels safe.
So you talked about technology and the future of sports. How likely is it that in 2021 I walk into a Mavericks game and I have a beacon in my phone telling you whether I might have been infected and maybe then won't get in?
You know, that's a tough one because there's a lot of privacy issues. There's a lot of civil rights issues. You know, we've had discussions about thermal scanners, thermal cameras. But the reality is, if someone takes 3 extra strength Tylenol, those things become worthless. And now all of a sudden you've put everybody at risk. And so trying, you know, as much as we'd like to use technology to try to be proactive, I don't really think this is going to be a technological solution. Even low tech like masks are debatable in terms of their benefits. And so I think this is going to come down to following the lead of science and really what medications, what vaccines are in place. And until we have something that really makes us confident that people aren't going to get, you know, infected and very sick, then we may not have fans. And so we'll do, again, I just don't want to cut corners, and I'm not trying to play a scientist here to try to predict when or what happened. All I can tell you is, you know, for me, if I wouldn't let my kids walk into that arena, I'm not going to let anybody else walk into that arena.
Thank you, Mark. And let's look at your leadership in content, because you created what arguably was the first streaming service in the world, AudioNet, in the 90s. And you're now greatly invested in the movie theater, film industry. And fast forward to, you know, today, since you have been in the space, nobody's shooting Hollywood movies. There are no sports games. There are no new Shark Tank episodes right now. I mean, you're still airing, but it's all pre-recorded.
No, actually, let me correct because I'm the sales guy, right? So on Friday nights on ABC, you're going to see new episodes of Shark Tank coming up. So we're packaging some things that are already in the can, so stay tuned. But other than that, your point is exactly right. There's no new content being created at all.
And streaming is surging like never before. So who will be leading the worlds of content and entertainment once doors open again? What do you think?
The most creative people, the most innovative people, the most agile people. You know, you have your house band. You've got people that are doing live events, you know, for tips. But I think, you know, as we get better acclimated to this digital presence, we're getting more of a presence, right? So now look what you guys are doing with Remote Daily. That's all about presence, right? From connecting and doing yoga breathing and doing stretching and listening to music and getting a vibe of unity, right? That's brilliant. But now as we get more confident with that technology, we'll be able to start creating content remotely. You know, we're getting more advanced with green screens. We're getting more advanced with using broadband to be able to do outlet, all the things, all the Photoshop type features that we typically thought we had to do in a studio environment or a professional editing bay. I think we're learning to create new types of content locally and then working on a distributed basis. And so I think creative people are going to invent new things that we like. I mean, like if you're watching Netflix right now, like a show like Love is Blind, could you imagine recreating that using Zoom? I mean, you could recreate all that craziness. So it's not a matter of the technology. It's not a matter of anything but somebody's creative ability, because now we're much more willing to try different things, because this is such a different universe right now, and there's so much uncertainty. Why wouldn't we? Why, you know, we want to just, again, Remote Daily is a perfect example. You use your creativity, you use the connection you had to people, and you let that network just expand. Why can't that apply to all types of content? And I think it will. And so I think we'll see a lot of newfangled, new ideas where, 6 months ago, we would have said, yeah, I don't think that would have worked. But now we're saying, oh my goodness, why didn't I think of that? So I'm waiting to see what you guys do next, because that's what I'm investing in.
Thank you. And I know that there's at least one Love is Blind fan in my team. So shout out to Brit.
There's even crazier shows now coming out. That just shows you people are going to be taking more and more chances.
And I mean, Mark, you're not only leading in sports and entertainment, you're an investor in dozens of companies on markcuban.com. It's scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
Yep.
and through Shark Tank, of course, but you also invest in military founders, female-led startups, in healthcare. And it's a vast array of entrepreneurs. It's a community. It's like a second family, I guess, you have built over the years. What do you find yourself telling them about leaderships in these very strange times?
I'll tell you exactly what I've told them. One, you have to communicate. You have to recognize that everybody in your world that you're dealing with, business and personal, is scared, right? Nobody has any answers. So you have to recognize that they're just as concerned and upset as you are. And so so communicate, and you have to be honest, you have to be authentic, and you have to also do a lot better job of listening, right? Historically, particularly in a business environment, it's go, 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 go. You're going to make a mistake here and there, but you just keep on moving forward. Now, because there's so much standstill and you're trying to figure out what comes next, we're going through this reset, but what's America 2.0 going to look like? There's so many ways we want to improve it, but as an entrepreneur, I don't have a lock on the best ideas. I really think the best ideas are going to come from the people who are on the ground, the people who are communicating with customers, the people who are out there like this, coming up with new ideas. When we look back in 10 years, there's going to be 25, 30, 50 world-class, game-changing companies that were created out of the pandemic of 2020. And chances are it's not going to come from the top down. It's going to come from the bottom up. So when you get a chance to talk to your stakeholders, whether it's a customer, whether it's an employee, whether it's a prospect, whether it's a vendor, ask them questions. What do you think? Right? And that's what I'm telling my companies to do, to listen. What ideas do you have? How would you like to see things work when we come out of this? What can we do better for employees? What are the concerns that you're facing? What vision do you have? Because and the other message I try to get them to communicate to everybody they're associated with is when somebody has an idea, just to tell them to say to themselves, why not me? Why can't my idea be the one that changes the world? Because it's going to come from somewhere we don't expect. And all of a sudden, whenever we're on the other side of this, there's just going to be some crazy, great, people have asked me, who do I think it's going to come from? It's going to come from someone who's broke, whose back's against the wall, who doesn't know where the next paycheck is coming from, who is just freaked out, who, and just says, you know what, screw it. I'm going for this. This is where it's going to happen. It starts as a side hustle and then grows into something incredible. And I think because when your back's against the wall and you got nothing to lose, Damon John, one of the guys on Shark Tank, calls it the power of broke. Then you just go for it. When I started my first company, I had just gotten fired. I was living 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment, eating mustard and ketchup sandwiches, not knowing where my next meal was coming from. I literally would just try to have $3 so I can go buy 1 beer and eat all the fried mushrooms in a bar. But that's where I had my best ideas. And so I think there's going to, by communicating authentically and honestly, there's going to be some great ideas. And if you just listen, you'll find them.
You're exposed to so many ideas on a daily basis as a venture capitalist, and I would just ask you to reflect on your role as a VC in this moment. What do you think going forward? You just mentioned America 2.0. What do you think should VCs support in the future?
I think all investors, whether you're an angel, seed, VC, whatever it may be, needs to look for game changers, right? I always, look to say, if someone comes to me with an idea, I don't want, them to say, I want the next Uber, I want the next mask making company. I don't want somebody that's going to be, there are 100 of them, and they want to be 101. I want an idea, like I mentioned earlier, where someone comes in and all of a sudden I say, why didn't I think of that? And where are those ideas for America 2.0? I don't know. And that's the most amazing part of all of this. Usually I've got a good feel. I can take, Steve Jobs once said, everything's a remix. You can look at what's been done and then just mix it up a little bit and get to the next thing. But now it's a clean slate, and the big companies don't have a big advantage because they're too slow and they're trying to protect their legacy businesses. Medium-sized companies, they're probably too slow and maybe, don't know where to go. But the small companies going for the side hustle, yeah, they're struggling in a lot of cases, but you get to run fast, and when you run with the elephants, there's the quick and the dead. And when the elephants don't know where to eat, you get to blaze right past them. And again, it's going to come from the craziest spots, but that's what I'm looking for, right? Find me a company. I don't want to hear about the next telehealth, the next telemedicine, the next Zoom, the next Skype. I want, again, something where it's just so out of left field that seems so crazy and so outrageous. Everybody thinks it's crazy, because those are always they're game-changing ideas.
We have a question here in the chat from author Greg Larkin, who also was a speaker on Remote Daily. Does Mark think there's an industry like healthcare that hasn't been disrupted yet, that will be disrupted because of COVID-19?
I mean, healthcare itself is a mess, right? I mean, right now, there's so many people, particularly those losing their jobs, that one day had corporate health insurance and now they have nothing. And on top of that, you've got the hospitals who are totally being disrupted. And so, you know, they made all their money doing cosmetic surgery or elective surgeries. And now that's, you know, it's not gone, but it's certainly put on hold. And so there's an opportunity to reinvent healthcare. And I think we need to. It's just the question of when, because it's going to be hard to get hospital CEOs, you know, to change who they are. And I don't know that there's something that short term just changes the game. You know, telehealth, telemedicine, precision medicine, we can go down a long list, but they're typically expensive and time consuming. So I don't have a specific idea, but I do know a lot has to change, so there's opportunity there.
Let's look at leadership in your home state, Texas. As a New Yorker, it's kind of mesmerizing to see what your governor is doing, saying that many businesses will be allowed to reopen with limited capacity this Friday, May 1st. You have called this out as marketing and showmanship. So how would you suggest to open Texas back up?
So, and I'd say this for every state, every city, what's worked, whether it's New York or Dallas, is restaurant delivery and pickup, right? You know, and so in New York, you can still order from, you know, a lot of different restaurants, and they'll drop it off and you can pick it up, or they'll deliver it depending. And that should be open to every single company, because we know it works. We haven't seen any significant problems from it. Now, in terms of retail, that's a whole different beast, because there's no protocols in place. You know, there's nobody that said, okay, I'm going to check my HVAC, my air conditioning, to make sure that my filters are good, so that if someone comes in who's sick with or without a mask, that they don't, you know, get other people sick. And so this isn't just about social distancing. I'll give you another example. You know, in order to eat in a restaurant, in Dallas, they said you can have 25% of your space open. Go figure, 25%, I think really, like I said, is just showmanship. So the governor can say he's letting retail open up, but you can't really make any money with just 25%. But let's just say, just generically, for a restaurant, you know, you take off your mask, someone leaves a mask there, you don't know if that person were sick. What are you going to do? Send somebody with a hazmat suit? You go into a store and you want to try on a t-shirt, you know, or a whatever, a dress, and you decide you don't want to buy it, and you put it back on the rack. You can't have that happen. And so you have all these different things that haven't been thought through. That's on one side. And part two to that, just economically, just to try to open up a business is going to be very difficult when you can only open up 25%. And three, and this is where nobody is even saying a word, and it really pisses me off, is, again, getting to work. Like, if it's New York and you try to open up, then everybody's got to go back on the subway, right? In Dallas, people use mass transit. More people drive, but people use mass transit, you know, and getting on that bus, getting on that you know, rail system, that just makes things worse in terms of social distance. How are you going to social distance and allow people to get to work on time and then come back on time? Just so many things that people haven't considered, and in this rush to get open. And so hopefully New York will do a better job, and hopefully Texas, because it's so difficult economically to open up with just 25%, will find its way to the reality that, you know, we're going to do it on a safer basis.
Now, opening up, you're part of the Opening Up the Country Council formed by the federal government. At least that's what news reports have been claiming. Is that true?
Yes, it is. It's an adventure. Yeah, so we've had one call. I'm on the Sports Council for Opening Back Up the Country. The president was on the call, me and 22 other people, mostly commissioners for different professional sports, and a couple other owners like I am. And it was more cosmetic. It was, you know, but the call was cosmetic. But let me just say that, to give the administration credit, and I'm not typically one to do so, they assigned a liaison to me, and that person has talked to me almost every day, and every single thing that I sent them, they've responded to. And the administration hasn't used it all, but they're starting to. And I'll give you the perfect example. All the protocols that I just brought up, what do you do if you're a retail store? What do you do if you're a restaurant? Well, I'm working with an organization called the AIHS, and I don't even remember but they're basically an industrial health and safety organization. They emailed me and said, hey, we hear where you're working with them, with this council. What can we do to help? And I said, we need a list of detailed protocols for every different type of retail organization, a restaurant, a nail salon, the retail clothing store. And that's exactly what they did. They put together this 100-point list of things covering all the minutia that a business owner is going to have to deal with. So out of all that, just niceties, if they follow through like they say they are, then hopefully something positive will come out of it. So, you know what, like I said, I'm not always one to give credit, but I'll give credit where credit is due, and it's due here.
And you're Zooming with the president, so that's interesting news.
Yeah, I won't go that far. At least not Zooming as in video, but yeah, I wouldn't take it that far.
Many people we host here on Remote Daily, they feel angry, like you also said. They feel pissed, but they also feel sad. They feel confused about the state the country is in, and at least 26 million Americans have lost their jobs by now. So asking about your leadership advice for us as citizens and consumers, what do you suggest for us to do right now? How can we turn the situation into an opportunity?
Get loud, right? Don't be silent. Get loud. Because there may be 26 who have filed for unemployment. There's another 25, give or take, that are underemployed or haven't filed yet. And so you're looking at 50 million people with challenges. And I've been very vocal about having a federal jobs program where, for instance, testing and tracing. Why not hire and train millions of people that can adhere to HIPAA protocols to protect privacy and get them out there doing testing and tracing now? We're going to face even more problems with long-term health care for the elderly. We're going to face a shortage of facilities for long-term care. Why not train people to do that now? And you can find 20 other comparable jobs that the federal government can put in place, because we need people not just having an income, but being productive. This is something where we're all in this together, and we can contribute to getting society back on track and getting our economy back on track and taking some of that fear away from people. Now, I know there's others that are bigger fans of UBI. I happen to be somebody who thinks UBI is applicable for partners who are staying home to take care of children, for somebody who's staying home to take care of an elderly parent or anybody who's sick. That's a perfect application for UBI and from my perspective. But I think where we are now with the pandemic, where so much of the economy is shut down, it's nice. It'd be really nice to give somebody $1,000 a month to find themselves. But if our taxpayer money is going to go to something, my personal opinion, we need people contributing to society, because that productivity, you get a multiplier on that investment when people work. And I'm not saying people have to be forced to take these jobs. I'm not saying if you don't want to be a tester and tracer, you have to, but if you make those jobs available for people who want them, I think that productivity will really accelerate how we're able to rebuild the economy and get people back to feeling like themselves.
There's a lot of interest here in our chat around the list of safety instructions for small businesses. So if there's any chance to make them available publicly, it would be amazing to hear from you about that. And
yeah, I will. I'm actually getting permission from them as we speak. I emailed them this morning, and I have a blog, blogmaverick.com, that I don't post a lot to, but I will post these safety precautions to the blog so everybody can see them, and I'll tweet links and all that kind of stuff. And I'm Cuban on Twitter.
Thank you. Now I have to ask you the big question, because when I first interviewed you at South by Southwest about 3 years ago, you said you wouldn't want to run for president because you wouldn't want to put your family through this.
Yep.
How has the virus changed your thoughts on that?
Just so much, there's still a 95% chance I'm not going to run, right? But you just can't ever say never in this day and age. Particularly, you've got 2 elderly or older candidates right now that are susceptible to who knows what. And I'm certainly not suggesting anything, but just so much can change. And the other thing is, when we put together these candidates, we didn't have the virus in mind. There was no consideration for a pandemic, no matter what the office that they're running for. And so we're kind of in a catch-22 where we have candidates that we really didn't select because of their ability to lead us out of that. out of this. And so I'm just, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I never want to close the door. I always try to keep my options open. So I'm not making I'm not making any announcements, and I'm not suggesting anything more than, crazier things have happened, as we know.
Well, I hope that, in the social contract that we're trying to build right now, I hope you play a vital role. And I was told you have about 30 minutes for us, so may I squeeze in maybe one last question for you?
I've actually got about 10 more minutes, so we're good.
Oh, great. Perfect. So before we go to the question from the chat, if we have 10 more minutes, please put your questions in for Mark through the chat. I have a question for you, a personal one, thinking about the future of your own family. What personal story from this pandemic, from this crisis, do you think you will tell your grandchildren?
Oh my goodness. Well, I can tell you what I told my children first. And, we talked about Anne Frank, right? We talked about people who lived in London during World War II. We talked about their grandparents coming over from Russia, not because they wanted to, but because they had to, just to stay alive. And that the human spirit is so much stronger than anything we give it credit for. And we're so resilient as a people. And I think that's what I'll tell them, that, this was an era, a period of time where we learned about the resilience of the world, and we learned about the agility of people to adapt and try to come up with something, turn something that's been awful into something positive. And, I do think when we get to the other side of this, we will be a more compassionate country and hopefully a more compassionate world. And I do think that, we've gone through a history of working from the top down and trying to trickle everything down, and we've seen that doesn't work. And now's the time for everybody to raise their voice. And I'm trying to do it as much as I can to say that not only will the best ideas start at the bottom, but the economic impact starts at the, and bottom's not the right word, but it has to be trickle up, right? We are a consumer driven economy. And the only way the economy is going to rebound is not by giving more money to people like me. That's not going to work. You can give me another dollar and it's not going to change where I invest. But when people who need the money, people who are working every day, people who get paid by the hour, when they have money to spend and they do spend it, that's where jobs are created. That's where companies are created. That's where new ideas are created. So everybody on this call has got to just say, you know what? I'm not going to vote for somebody who supports trickle-down economics. It's time to put a lot more of the strength in the hands of the people, because that's truly what's going to rebuild the economy. And I say that 100% as a capitalist, because for me, when you have consumerism, great businesses are born, right? And even if we're creating jobs, that's okay, because people in this country are productive, right? They're going to be contributing to society. And if we're paying them more than just a living wage, they'll consume. And when they consume, all us capitalists get to go to work. All the entrepreneurs get to create things, and new people become entrepreneurs and create amazing things.
Thank you. Looking at the questions from our community here, a lot of the people that join us on Remote Daily are knowledge workers. So they have the privilege to be at home right now, safe and sound, and do their work from there. And there's been one question about a timeline. Do you think knowledge workers, like the consultants, the bankers of this world, should work from home as long as possible?
Yeah, why not? I mean, and I got to tell you, I think most companies are going to recognize that a lot of people got a lot more work done at home than they did in the office, and for a lot less agita, a lot less stress than they had in the office. And it's a lot less taxing on the environment and on infrastructure by working from home. So yeah, we've already at the Mavs and some of my other companies, we've already started, trying to determine who we can keep at home. And do we really have to have people coming into the office for a desk, as opposed to just letting them work out of the house? Because now we've improved our connectivity. And so, yeah, I think knowledge workers will certainly be able to work from home more. And the other, I'll put a caveat on there, we're evolving, if not already, into an artificial intelligence world. Right. And so things are going to change dramatically. And as a knowledge worker, just like you had to learn, if you're old enough, you had to learn about the web, and you had to learn about mobile computing. And now you're having to understand cloud computing to a certain extent. Every knowledge worker is going to have to understand artificial intelligence and the basics. And look, it's not a natural thing, but like I've gone online and done tutorials on AWS. I've taken Coursera classes, read books, because you got to keep up with this stuff because the world's going to change and you have to understand how it's going to impact you, particularly if you're a knowledge worker, because obviously data is the core of AI.
Thank you, Mark. And we always, if you have the last time for a last question, is there, maybe we always do a social share here on Remote Daily with our guests. Is there one app, one channel, one person you follow that made you feel better in this time?
That's a great question. I'm gonna say TikTok. Because TikTok is just so mesmerizing. You talk about artificial intelligence. They probably have the best AI in the entertainment space, because it's shocking when I watch my son get on TikTok just to kill time and just be amused. His feed is completely different. Even though we follow a lot of the same people, his feed is completely different than mine, which is different than my daughter's. And so it's just such a distraction. And there's a guy, Andrew Berger or Evan Berger, Evan Berger on TikTok, who does the most amazing Trump, Bernie Sanders, and Obama imitations. I mean, I just roll every time. He has them, like all three of them playing poker together or going on a road trip together. I mean, it's hysterical. So you got to check him out, Evan Berger on TikTok.
Thank you so much, Mark Cuban, for taking the time to be a guest on Remote Daily, telling us that leadership is, in these times, is about asking, why not me? And I invite you all to tune into Shark Tank Friday night on ABC. Follow Mark on all his social channels. He's M Cuban almost everywhere. There's a lot more questions, but you have to run, and we invite you to connect with each other in the breakout rooms. We thank our live stream audience to have joined us. Please sign up at remotedaily.co if you want to be live on Zoom with us. And we see you again here in 10 minutes. Enjoy connecting, get your contact info ready. And one last round of virtual applause for amazing guests of today. Mark Cuban, thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. It was a blast. It's so totally different. I really, really appreciate it.